They said they were just using me until the house was ours. I heard it from the hallway, and it shattered everything I believed. My name is Lillian Carter. I'm 68 years old, a widow for nearly a decade now, and until recently the kind of woman who believed that kindness, real kindness, would always be returned in time. I never had children of my own. My late husband, Charles, and I tried for years, but life had other plans. Still, we built a home together, a beautiful 2-story house with red shutters and a porch swing he hung up himself. It was meant to be our forever place, safe, quiet, ours. When my younger sister passed away unexpectedly, I stepped in to raise her granddaughter, Madison. She was just a teenager then, wild-eyed and grieving, and I became everything from guardian to guidance counselor. I put her through school, watched her graduate, even helped pay for her wedding. She was my family, the closest thing I had to a daughter. So when Madison and her husband, Tyler, hit a rough patch last year and asked if they could move in for just a little while, I didn't hesitate. Tyler had lost his job. Madison was between contracts, and they said they needed a place to regroup. I opened the doors without a second thought. They took the master bedroom. I moved into the guest room. I cooked for them, cleaned around them. When the dishwasher broke, I fixed it. When Madison mentioned wanting to renovate the kitchen once this is ours, I thought she was joking. I laughed along. I always wanted to believe that love and loyalty still existed in this world, that families stood by one another without question. But then came that night, that sentence. It was late, nearly midnight. I'd been reading upstairs when I remembered I'd left my tea mug in the living room. I came down barefoot, quietly, so I wouldn't wake them. As I turned the corner toward the kitchen, I froze. Their voices, laughing, casual, cruel. "She doesn't even know what's coming," Madison giggled. "She won't last much longer," Tyler added, his tone as cold as steel. "We're just using her till the house is ours." There was a pause. Then both of them laughed. I didn't breathe. I couldn't. I stood in the dark, clutching the banister like it was the only thing holding me upright. That sentence ran laps in my mind. "We're just using her." My heart wasn't racing. It was collapsing. I wasn't angry yet, not even shocked, just hollow. As if the air had been pulled from the room and all that remained was the quiet gasp of truth finally showing itself. I stepped back silently, afraid the floorboards might betray me. I crept upstairs, closed my door, and sat on the edge of the bed for what felt like hours. My mind spiraled through every conversation, every small red flag I'd ignored. The casual way Madison once asked if I'd updated the deed. The time Tyler looked at the living room and muttered, "This'll look great once we redo it." The countless passive-aggressive comments about younger families making better use of space. I had opened my home, given them comfort, and they had written my expiration date in whispers. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling as the shadows of betrayal danced across it, and a storm I never saw coming settled in my chest. At 5:10 a.m., just before the birds began their songs, I got up, went to the attic, and pulled down the old wooden box that held everything. Charles's will, our mortgage papers, the deed to the house. My hands trembled as I opened it, but my mind was suddenly sharper than it had been in years, because they thought they were waiting on a dying woman to hand them a house. But I was wide awake, and they were about to learn what it meant to mistake silence for surrender. The attic was cold that morning, the kind of cold that felt like memory itself, frozen in wooden beams and boxes taped shut by hands that no longer existed. I hadn't opened that old chest since Charles passed away, but now it called to me like a lighthouse in the fog of my anger. The house papers were exactly where I remembered, tucked inside a weathered folder beneath an old photo album and a sealed envelope with my name in Charles's handwriting. I set the envelope aside for later. My fingers trembled as I pulled out the deed. There it was, in black and white, my name, sole owner, No joint title. No power of attorney. Just me. No one could take this from me. Not Madison. Not Tyler. Not even time. The moment gave me a strange kind of clarity. Not rage. Not revenge. Just realization. That house wasn't just wood and brick. It was love. Charles and I had poured ourselves into it, installing every fixture together, saving every penny to afford the custom porch, even planting the magnolia tree out front that now towered over the yard. We didn't inherit it. We built it. With hope. With sweat. With the belief that someday someone would cherish it like we did. And yet, I'd handed the keys to people who saw it as nothing more than a future property grab. They didn't know its story. Madison was a baby when her mother passed. My sister, Valerie. Valerie had raised me as much as I had raised her. Losing her broke me. But taking care of Madison was my way of honoring her memory. I paid for school supplies, drove her to doctor appointments, attended her parent-teacher conferences. I gave up weekend getaways and retirement plans so she'd never feel the sting of abandonment. I never thought I'd have to question her love. I remember the first night she and Tyler moved in. Madison hugged me so tight. Her voice cracked when she said, "Thank you, Aunt Lily. We just need time." I told her, "Take as much as you need." I meant it. I always did. But it hadn't taken long before things changed. Tyler started making backhanded comments about how this place needs fresh energy, or your generation doesn't believe in open space. He said it with a smile, but his eyes didn't match. Madison started talking about modernizing the house. She'd suggest things like tearing down the bookshelf Charles built himself or painting over the soft green walls we chose together. At first I thought they were just nesting. Young couples did that. But then came the slip-ups. The time I found my grandmother's necklace missing from the drawer. Madison claimed it had been misplaced. The time Tyler told a neighbor, "We'll own it eventually anyway, she's got no kids." I brushed it off as ignorance. Because when you love someone like your own child, you'll swallow 1,000 tiny cuts before realizing you're bleeding. And last night, that was the final wound. We're just using her till the house is ours. Those words echoed in my head as I sat in my quiet kitchen that morning, the deed in one hand, my coffee untouched in the other. The light streamed through the window, soft and golden, the way Charles used to love it. I could almost hear him say, "You don't owe anyone your peace." I reached for the envelope again. Charles's letter. I hadn't read it in 9 years. I was too broken then, too lost. But something told me today was the day. Inside, in his neat handwriting, were just a few paragraphs, but one line stood out like a torch in the dark. If you ever find yourself surrounded by people who forget who you are, walk away. You've already given them enough. Tears slipped down my cheek. Grief, yes. But also freedom. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't asking what others needed from me. I was asking what I needed from myself. And I needed out. Not tomorrow. Not eventually. Now, by the time the sun rose completely, I had already packed the most important things. Not clothes, not dishes, not even the old armchair in the corner that still creaked the way Charles did when he cleared his throat before a story. No, what I packed were documents, truths, the foundation of what was mine. The deed was ironclad. The will was clear. Charles had left everything to me. No trust, no conditions, just love. Pure, protective love. I spent that morning making calls, quiet ones. I knew a man named Michael from town, a real estate agent who once helped a friend sell their property off-market. He was discreet, trusted. When I told him I needed to sell quickly and privately, his voice didn't even flinch. "Lillian, I've got someone who's been eyeing homes exactly like yours. Cash buyer, older couple looking to downsize from the city and retire in the country." I asked him only one thing. "Don't list it. Don't post photos. Just let me know when they're ready." "They're already ready," he replied. "They've been waiting for a house like yours." I smiled, tired but sharper than I'd felt in months. Madison and Tyler were still asleep when I moved through the house, gathering what I needed. Important papers, Charles's military flag, my wedding ring, which I had stopped wearing when the arthritis in my knuckles made it too tight, and a single photo, Charles and me standing in front of the newly built porch, holding glasses of lemonade and looking like the future would never run out. Funny how much love you can put into something, and how easily people born decades after its foundation think they're entitled to it. I left behind the furniture, the linens, even the crystal set Madison had once admired, because none of that mattered anymore. This house had been a home when it was full of love, but now it was just a target for people who'd forgotten how to care. At exactly 10:15 a.m., Michael arrived with the couple. They were kind, older, a retired teacher and her husband, a former mechanic who now gardened full-time. Their eyes didn't roam the place like vultures. They looked at it like it was sacred. They asked nothing of me. No haggle, no pressure. The notary came at noon. I signed the sale documents with a hand steadier than I expected. Michael handed me a check and a manila envelope with all the finalized paperwork. And then, just like that, it was no longer my house. It felt like letting go of a lifeline, but also like stepping out of a cage. I left a note on the kitchen counter before I walked out. I didn't leave it on a sticky note. I took a sheet of my best stationery, wrote with my favorite pen, and folded it neatly next to a small framed photo of my sister Valerie holding baby Madison. The note said, "To those who plan their future without me in it, I hope you find what you're looking for. This home was built with love, but it cannot survive entitlement. You were waiting for it to be yours. It never was." Lillian. I didn't wait to see them read it. I got into my car, drove away without music, just the hum of tires against old country roads and the rising certainty that I'd done the right thing. By 2 p.m., I had checked into a small rental cabin by the lake, the same one Charles and I used to visit when we were younger. I'd always dreamed of living there one day. I just never thought it would take heartbreak to finally get there. I turned off my phone for the first time in weeks and sat on the front porch. The water sparkled like silver threads. A bird landed on the railing, chirped once, and flew off. I whispered to no one, "I'm not theirs to use." And for the first time in a long, long time, I believed it. It was barely dawn when I rolled my small suitcase across the gravel driveway of the cabin and heard the birds calling across the lake. I'd slept well for the first time in months. Not because the bed was softer, if anything, it was lumpy and smelled faintly of cedar, but because my heart wasn't clenched anymore. Back at the house, I imagined the sun was pouring in through the sheer white curtains I'd hung in the guest room, the ones Madison once said were outdated like grandma chic. Tyler would probably still be snoring, leg tossed over the blanket like a drunk king in a borrowed castle. Madison would be up soon. She liked to claim she was a morning person, though her mornings never began before 9:30. I wondered how long it would take before they noticed something was missing. Would it be when the scent of bacon didn't float from the kitchen? When the porch swing didn't creak under my usual 7 a.m. wait? Or would it be the silence? The stillness that creeps in when the one who made the house a home is no longer there? I didn't have to wonder long. At exactly 9:06 a.m., my phone vibrated on the table next to my cup of tea. Madison, 8 missed calls. Then a text. "Where are you? Where's your car?" I took a long sip of tea and let the message sit. At 9:12, another one, this time from Tyler. "Did you leave early? There's a weird envelope on the counter with our names on it. Is this a joke?" I didn't reply. By 9:15, my phone lit up like fireworks. "You sold the house? Are you insane? Aunt Lily, what did you do? You can't just leave." I turned off the screen. Yes, I could. I had. At 9:42 a.m., the cabin's landline rang, a number I didn't recognize, but I knew that voice the second I picked up. "Lillian?" Madison's tone had changed. Sugar, not vinegar now. "I think there's been some sort of misunderstanding." I said nothing. Look, we thought maybe you were just letting us take over some responsibilities. The house was getting to be a lot for you, right? We were helping. I still said nothing. She kept talking. You've been like a mother to me. You raised me. This house, it's the only home I've ever known. There it was. Now she remembered. I finally spoke, calm even. Exactly. It was a home, until it became a calculation. There was silence on the line. Then a sharp inhale. You heard us that night. I did. And you just sold it? Without saying a word? I said plenty, you just weren't listening. She didn't reply. For the first time, Madison Carter had no words. I ended the call gently, not in anger, just in peace. That afternoon, Michael texted to let me know the buyers were moving in within the week. Madison and Tyler had until Friday to vacate. No extensions, no appeals. The sale was final. By evening, I received a voicemail from Tyler. He didn't yell, he begged. Please call me, we didn't mean it, it was just talk. You know how people say things in private, you don't have to do this. But I did. I had already done it. And deep down, they knew why. I stood on the cabin's porch that evening with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders and Charles's letter folded in my hand. I read it again, whispering the last line like a prayer. When the time comes, choose peace. Choose yourself. I hadn't burned bridges. I'd simply built a door and walked through it. The thing about finally choosing yourself is, you don't just escape the people who used you. You remember yourself. The morning after I turned off my phone, I drove into the nearest town and stopped at a little diner Charles and I used to love. The waitress remembered me. Her name was Carla. She used to bring us free pie when she had extra slices at the end of the day. I haven't seen you in forever, Miss Carter, she smiled. Still in the big house? I stirred my coffee gently, smiled back. Not anymore. I've moved on. She didn't pry, just slid a warm slice of peach pie across the table and said, Good for you. That phrase kept ringing in my head the rest of the week. Good for you. As if finally choosing peace was something people didn't expect from a woman like me. A quiet widow, a sweet old aunt, a lady who baked, babysat, and smiled through insults like they were just summer winds. I guess they never realized I could walk away. While Madison and Tyler were losing their minds over the house, I had already found a rhythm. I enrolled in a local community center class, flower arranging, something I'd always wanted to try. I met a group of women around my age, all sharp as tacks and twice as bold. I wasn't the sweet aunt anymore, I was just Lillian. And that was enough. And then there was James, my new neighbor, 3 cabins down. A retired firefighter with a crooked smile and an old hound named Murphy. He brought me firewood the second night it got cold. Didn't ask questions, just said, Thought you might need it. We started talking more, about everything and nothing. He never pushed, never pitied. One day, I caught him watching me tend to the small garden I was planting in front of the porch, and he just nodded. You've got the hands of someone who's been through a lot. I smiled. I used to build futures. Now I just grow flowers. It wasn't romantic. It didn't need to be. But it was good. Meanwhile, Madison was spiraling. I didn't check social media much, but a friend from church texted me, You should see what your niece is posting. Curiosity got the better of me. I logged in. Madison had written a dramatic post about elderly manipulation and being robbed of her future. Photos of her and Tyler standing in front of my old house, pouting like victims of a cruel injustice. The comments, though, they weren't what she expected. One woman replied, Wait, wasn't that her house to begin with? Another, Didn't she raise you? How dare you talk about her like this? Then came the best one. My grandma gave me everything, too. I never forgot it. You clearly did. I closed the app and never looked again. They could have the internet. I had peace. Then, about 2 weeks after the move, I got an official letter from an attorney. Madison and Tyler were trying to contest the sale. They claimed undue influence, saying I wasn't of sound mind when I signed the deed. I laughed. Out loud. The attorney I'd hired, a sharp woman named Michelle who wore thick glasses and didn't miss a single comma, had anticipated it. She'd recorded everything. I had letters, proof, witnesses. The buyers were solid. The contract was airtight. Michelle called me that afternoon and said, "They've got nothing. Let them throw their tantrum." So I did. I let them scream into empty spaces while I repotted orchids and learned how to prune roses. Sometimes healing doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with silence. It comes with doing nothing at all when the people who underestimated you expect a reaction. They'd thought they could use me to get what they wanted, but what they didn't know was I'd already started planning my freedom long before they whispered their betrayal. All it took was one night to remind me that I'd given too much to be treated like an obligation, and I had one more lesson left to teach them. Friday came faster than they expected. The final move-out deadline. I didn't drive by. I didn't check on them. I didn't even ask how it went. But a friend of mine from the neighborhood, Sharon, who'd lived 2 streets down for over 20 years, sent me a picture that morning. It was Madison and Tyler standing on the curb beside a heap of boxes and trash bags. Their car was overloaded. Tyler looked like he was mid-argument. Madison was holding her phone like it was a weapon, probably screaming into it. The caption under Sharon's message read simply, "Looks like the princess and her pawn have been evicted." I didn't smile. Not exactly, but I exhaled. That night, I sat by the lake with a shawl around my shoulders, and Murphy the hound curled up at my feet. James sat on the steps beside me with 2 mugs of hot cider, one for each of us. He didn't ask what the smile on my face meant. He just said, "Quiet night," and it was. The kind of quiet you earn. The following week, the buyers officially moved into the house. They sent me a thank you card, handwritten, not some cold, generic note. The woman even included a photo of herself standing next to the magnolia tree. She said, "I've never felt safer in a place." I cried when I read it. Because that's what that house was meant for, not greed, not inheritance schemes, not entitlement, but peace. Meanwhile, Madison and Tyler were bouncing from place to place. Tyler's parents didn't take them in for long. They don't do drama, according to a mutual friend. Madison tried to paint herself as the betrayed daughter figure, but the more she talked, the more holes showed in her story. People weren't buying it anymore. Old friends stopped returning her calls. Relatives, people I hadn't heard from in years, started messaging me. One cousin wrote, "I had no idea they were using you like that. I'm so sorry, Lillian." Another, "You raised her better." She just forgot. I never responded. I didn't need to. They could wrestle with their own shame. I had already let mine go. Then came the moment that I never expected, but almost saw coming. One afternoon, as I was weeding the flower beds outside the cabin, a car pulled into the gravel driveway. It was Tyler. He looked smaller, not physically, but something in him had deflated. No swagger, no smirk, just a man carrying a manila envelope walking like the ground beneath him was made of glass. Murphy growled softly, but I patted him calm. Tyler stopped a few feet away. "Can I talk to you for a second?" I stood slowly, brushing dirt from my gloves. "I'm not here to beg," he said quickly, "or blame. I thought you should see this." He held out the envelope. Inside were photos, printed, not digital, of Madison, arms wrapped around another man, in hotel lobbies, in restaurants, in a car parked outside a hotel with curtains drawn. I didn't speak. I didn't even blink. "She said I was boring," he muttered. "Said she only married me because I was safe. That eventually your house would give us the life she really wanted." There it was, the full truth. I handed the envelope back. "Why bring this to me?" "Because..." He hesitated. "You were the only one who ever gave us anything real, and we treated you like you were disposable. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know, Madison didn't just use you, she used everyone." I looked at him. Really looked. Not with hatred, not even pity, just clarity. "You get one life, Tyler," I said quietly. "Don't waste it chasing what doesn't belong to you." He nodded, said nothing else, and left. That was the last time I saw him. I don't know where they went after that. I don't need to, because what they built was never real, just a house of cards trembling in the wind of their own deception. And I was already rebuilding something better, not just a life, a legacy. It's been a little over a year now. The lake is still. The wildflowers I planted last spring bloom in soft pinks and yellows, lining the porch like a garland nature tied just for me. Murphy still visits every afternoon, tail wagging, snout wet from his adventures. James has become something steady in my life, a gentle presence who knows when to talk and when to simply sit beside me in silence. My days aren't flashy. They're full of little rituals that remind me of who I am. Morning tea with honey, a walk by the water, afternoons volunteering at the local library, reading to children whose eyes light up the way Madison's used to, once upon a time. And sometimes, when I least expect it, someone will come up to me and say, "You're Lillian Carter, right? You used to live on Sycamore Lane. I heard what you did." I never confirm or deny, because the truth isn't something I owe anyone. It's something I live by. There's a framed photo on my mantle now. It's not the one of Charles and me on the porch. That one I donated to the Historical Society when the new homeowners wanted to learn more about the place. This one is different. It's just me. Smiling, standing in front of my garden, dirt on my gloves, light in my eyes. James took it on a Sunday when I wasn't paying attention. He said, "You look more alive than I've ever seen you." And I did, because for once, I wasn't holding my breath. I wasn't pouring from an empty cup. I wasn't waiting for someone to recognize my worth. I had already recognized it. Madison never wrote again. Not a call, not a card. Part of me wonders if she's ashamed. The other part knows she might still be angry, offended even that I didn't let her get away with it. But I didn't do what I did for revenge. I did it for release. There's a copy of Charles's letter framed near the door now. Guests often glance at it, thinking it's a poem or a quote from a book. They don't realize it's the exact sentence that changed my life. If you ever find yourself surrounded by people who forget who you are, walk away. You've already given them enough. I walk past it every morning, and every morning I remember who I am. Not just a widow or a helper, or someone to be leaned on until they get what they want. I'm the woman who walked away, who gave love until it was twisted and then chose herself, who turned a chapter others tried to write for her into a whole new story they'll never understand. Because when they said, "We're just using her till the house is ours," they didn't know they were handing me a door, and I didn't slam it. I closed it, locked it, and planted flowers on the other side.